What's going on, folks? Welcome to episode 2 of the Party Chat podcast. Those of you who tuned in last week, thanks for coming back. And you'll probably notice that our host for last week, Nick, is not with us tonight. He is otherwise engaged. So I'll be taking the reins of this ship as I mix and fumble my metaphors all the way through the next half an hour to an hour. Joining me this week is Darren, who joined us last week. Say good day.
Hello again.
And we've also got a very special guest, Wes. Say good day, Wes.
G'day, guys. Very special. That's a big call.
Mate, you are the first special guest we've had on the podcast. It's a huge honour for you. As appears to be the tradition, we go around and introduce ourselves. Darren and I did so last week, but Wes, if you could give us a bit of a backstory to you as a gamer and a geek, that'd be great.
Yeah, look, well, as a gamer, I've been gaming ever since Alex the Kid was available, which is way back when I was a kid, obviously, and just played most games and tried to keep up with most of the popular stuff through most of my sort of teenage years, I guess you could say. And more recently, I've gotten into the YouTube side of gaming, which I've really enjoyed, simply because it just gives me that extra element. So I guess with this current generation, I'm trying to play pretty much everything I can across both PlayStation and Xbox One. But with the plethora of games that's coming out at the moment, it's bloody hard. So I'm doing my best to keep up as I go.
It's a bit difficult. We spoke about this a fair bit at length last week, so we can feel your pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to give people a bit of an idea of what we're going to be talking about in today's cast, we'll be covering the recent release of the Captain America Civil War trailer, taking a look at Star Wars Battlefront, and also just some interesting information about Nintendo and average Metacritic scores that's popped up. But before we get into that, we might launch into a bit of news. So I'll kick things off. I don't know if you guys caught this, but Vin Diesel, international growly man and nerd, recently announced via Instagram his production company will be doing a TV series based on the Riddick universe called Merc City. Have any of you guys caught up with that?
I saw the headlines for it, but I didn't actually read much into it yet. But I do enjoy Riddick quite a bit, so I'm keen to see what it is.
Yeah, look, I'm the same. I'm a big fan of the movie, so I'm keen to see how they're going to adapt it to a TV series and how much, I guess, of the big blockbuster kind of action we can expect to see in a TV series versus a movie. So I think that sounds pretty exciting.
Do you think it's going to have shoulders to carry it without the character of Riddick? I'm pretty confident it's going to be following more mercenaries than the actual character of Riddick. Do you think it can carry it without him?
I do.
From my point of view, yeah, you go.
Yeah, I think it can. It really depends on who they get to play the role. If they're going to get somebody else to be the lead mercenary, I guess. But yeah, we won't know anything until we hear some casting or some plot or something about it.
Yeah, look, I completely agree with that. I mean, look at things like Gotham, that TV series, where they have kind of spun off some of the main characters. I know technically Bruce Wayne's still there as a junior, but he's now not the focus as Batman. So, they can kind of spin these things off in a pretty decent direction and still come up with a decent plot line. So, keen to see what they do with it.
Indeed. Well, I think time will tell. Now, this is an interesting one that cropped up recently. Fox movie studios have officially removed Fantastic Four 2 from their schedule. Is this the death of the Fox Fantastic Four brand, or do you think they're just going to put it on hiatus and let people forget about what effectively was a bit of a disaster?
Yeah, I think it's got to go into kind of sleep mode for a little while. The last movie was a disaster, as you said, so I think it needs a bit of mental gap and have people forget about it from their recent memory and hopefully do another reboot down the track.
Yeah, personally, I'd like it to die.
Don't be afraid to tell us what you really think, Darren.
I think, and this is what everybody says anyway, I'd like it to go back to Marvel. Obviously, that's the dream of most of these things, but Fantastic Four more so than X-Men or anything like that. I would like to be back at Marvel. I think they do a decent job of rebooting it and bringing it into the fold with the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Even if it meant there wasn't a standalone Fantastic Four, having them pop up in Avengers movies and things like that would be cool, but I don't see it happening. I don't see Fox letting it go, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think the key is integrating it as opposed to rebooting it again. They've had 2 reboots in the last short-term memory, but I think if we saw a third reboot, people would just not bother.
Yeah, I agree. I think it needs about a 5 to 10 year gap, though. I think people just need to forget about the last one and move on to something different, and hopefully when they do reboot it, they do it properly.
I'm not sure how many years it is, but I know that they will have to make another movie within a certain amount of years, or they will lose the rights to Fantastic Four. So they don't have the option of waiting 10 years to reboot it again. They either make another movie, or it lapses and goes back to Marvel anyway. So I'm not exactly sure how many years it was. I know that there was some deal done that extended out that license recently, and that was how Marvel managed to get some of the other Fox movies back.
Yeah.
That's how they got Daredevil back, wasn't it?
Yeah, Daredevil, Elektra. There was a bunch of other things that they owned the rights for that Marvel got back as part of that. But and part of that deal was extending the license for Fantastic Four. But they won't have an option of waiting too long to do something. And they're obviously not going to make a sequel to this one. I think that they've burnt all bridges that they had there.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and like we were saying before, I think a third reboot within what would be essentially 10 years is too much.
Mm-hmm. Well, we saw what happened back to Spider-Man.
Yeah, unless it went back to Marvel, that'd change everything. Like Spider-Man getting a third reboot, if it went back, I think it'd be fine. But Fox doing another reboot would, I don't think there'd be many people lining up to see it.
Spider-Man does bring an interesting point, and we'll probably talk a bit more about Spider-Man a little bit later, but the idea that Marvel can access the intellectual property of Spider-Man for their films in that cross deal that they did, do you think there's potential for something like that to maybe for Fox to sort of present something along those lines?
There'd have to be a lot of water under bridges between Fox and Marvel for that to happen. I know that there's a fair bit of animosity there, so I don't see there being something like that unless Fox basically suck up.
What about the idea of doing some sort of TV series spin-off? I mean, that's been popular, obviously, for Daredevil and Netflix, so I'm sure Fox would want to play in that space as well.
Did Fox have... Oh, of course they have. Never mind. I'll completely ignore that. I was going to say, do they have a TV arm? And then, yeah, no. Yep, apparently they do.
Yeah, I don't know if they have TV rights to Fantastic Four, though, because they're usually completely separate.
Yeah.
The TV rights and the movie rights. So I don't know who owns the TV rights. If it is Fox, that's probably a venue that they could they could use.
Because you could probably get away with doing a semi-reboot through a TV series as opposed to a full-on movie.
Yeah, because then it'd basically live in a different universe, much like we're going to have 2 Flashes at the same time, in one in the movies and one on TV. So yeah. I think people can accept that a little bit easier than another movie reboot.
Makes me a little sad that we're not going to see the same Flash on the big screen. I think he does a great job.
Yeah, Grant Gunston's good.
Maybe moving away a little from film and television news, we might just cover a little bit of gaming news. Well, first of all, we'll start off with the conversation that Naughty Dog have had recently, where they've said they've got one more game, at least in this generation, after Uncharted 4. Did we all catch up with that?
Yeah, I did, definitely. And I'm always skeptical about this sort of stuff.
They all but announced The Last of Us 2 in a live stream.
Yeah.
Short of them saying, yep, we're doing The Last of Us 2. Here's all the characters. It was the closest you'll get to a full reveal, I think. What about beyond that? Do you think that there's maybe a third game this generation?
I'd hope so, because if not, it either means we're going to be waiting a long time for The Last of Us 2, or it's not going to be that long before we're talking PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I think it might be a combination of both of those. I don't think the generation is going to last as long as the previous one, so I think it's not going to be that long until we start talking about PlayStation 5, but I also think that Sony's budget worries might have them trimming down some of these studios' expectations in terms of what they can and can't deliver.
But surely Naughty Dog is their big bank. They can. A Naughty Dog game comes out. When was the last time one of them wasn't in, at least in the top 3 of a GOTY?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think Sony's become a little bit risk adverse though recently.
Yeah, and the critical reception of those games doesn't necessarily mean that they've been massive sellers. You compare the Uncharted games to Halo or Gears of War or one of those big franchises from Microsoft, and they're not even in the same ballpark. It could be different with Uncharted 4 because the install base is so much bigger for PS4 than it is Xbox One, but I think that the sales of Uncharted 4 will really dictate what sort of money they get to spend on their next games.
Yeah,
it's always been an interesting sort of a counterbalance where the Sony brands tend to be more recognisable. The IPs tend to be more well known, but they're just not purchased as much. It's really odd.
Well, I think the high production values too that Uncharted needs to have, the next Last of Us needs to have, means that they need to go and spend significantly more time actually developing a superstar game as well. So it's probably a combination of all those elements.
Very good. Well, sort of staying with the PlayStation, but also on Xbox now, we've got an announcement that Chivalry Medieval Warfare is available for digital pre-order and pre-download. Have either of you guys tried your hand at this game?
No, I haven't actually tried it, but I'm very, very interested. I mean, I like that style. It seems to mix it up based on all the games that we currently have available to us. So I'm liking the fact that it feels new, even though it delves into kind of medieval times. So it's got my interest sparked, that's for sure. Definitely keen to check it out.
What about you, Darren? Did you grab it on PC?
Yeah, we played it pretty early on. You and I. It might have even been in beta at the time on PC. It was a while ago now.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how much it's evolved since then. It was a little rough back when we did play it, but I'm keen to check it out again. I'll probably pick it up on console. I tend to prefer playing on console than sitting at my PC. A little bit more comfortable on my couch.
My recollections of the game were basically organised chaos. You run headlong into just a pack of people, and you just frantically mash a mouse button, trying to hope you'd actually connect with someone before you got decapitated, and then you rinse and repeat that. It was tough, and I mean, when I was playing it, I didn't have the best internet connection, so it made things a little bit tricky. But
I have heard the sword fighting mechanics are pretty innovative in terms of there's nothing else like it, but yet it's still really demanding. So if you stuff up a little bit, it doesn't deliver a good result. Is that a fair assumption?
It is, and because I was rubbish, I just run headlong in and just smash my mouse button. That's probably part of the reason I was dying. I wasn't really finessing it. I wasn't, pulling the shield up at the right times, and I wasn't playing the meta game of it. I guess I was just frantically hitting that mouse button and hoping I was taking someone's head off, which didn't happen very often.
So look, for me, I'm definitely interested. So I'll probably wait to check out a demo. I think based on some of that feedback right there.
Well, as Darren said, when we were playing it was really early beta. It had only just come out of Greenlight, so it was pretty fresh.
Yep.
Moving over, I guess, to the Xbox console news now. Firstly, Xbox itself turns 10 just recently. Turned 10.
The 360.
Oh, was it the 360? Sorry, yep.
Yeah.
Did you celebrate, Darren? Did you put a candle next to it? A little cupcake, maybe?
I didn't, but I still have my launch day Xbox 360, so it doesn't get used so much anymore. I did replace it with one of the slim models, but it is sitting in a cupboard. I still own the original.
So I think the real question is, even though it's 10, when's it going to die? That's probably a little bit more controversial, isn't it?
I think it's pretty much on the way now. With the slim pickings of Call of Duty this year, I think that'll be the last time a Call of Duty game comes out last gen. And I think once Call of Duty pulls the pin, that's it.
Yep. And they throw backwards compatibility in there as well.
Yeah. And they got that really quick, decent install basis that I don't think anyone was really expecting on either of the next-gen consoles. That's probably helped a lot of developers make that jump to the new hardware, the new architecture.
Yeah, absolutely.
People who aren't ready to jump, though, you can look forward to EA Sports games for the next 5 years still.
Cheeky little roster change every year. Sounds great.
Yeah.
And lastly, before we get into some of the bigger discussion points, the Games for Gold for December. Is anyone on top of this? Does anyone give us an update on what is going for Games for Gold members?
I do know the ones for the Xbox One. I haven't really delved into the 360 ones, but we do have Van Helsing, which is a game I don't know a lot about, but it's being kind of described as a Diablo-esque game, so I'm not 100% sure there.
I've played that one on the PC, and it's exactly what it is. It's Diablo without character classes. You play one character, but the idea is kind of the same with a few twists thrown in.
And organised chaos, as I understand, like it's a pretty hectic, full-on kind of game. Is that about it, right?
I know more than Diablo. If you found that with Diablo, then yeah, absolutely. But it's not more intense. It's very similar mechanic. It's that isometric. On the PC, it's right-clicking to kill your enemy sort of gameplay, but it's really fun.
Yeah. Look, and then the other one is Thief, also on the Xbox One. Now, this is the game I've got I'm sort of scratching my head because I'm sure I've had it either before via the PlayStation Plus subscription, or it was available on Xbox 360. I can't exactly remember, but it feels like we've had it before.
It was on 360. It was
360.
It was free on 360 a few months ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I can remember it popping up.
Okay.
I've got the.
Sorry, I was going to say, I want to go on record and say I was profoundly disappointed with that game.
Yeah, it is. Of all of the games that I've purchased on the Xbox One since launch, and that's almost all of them, Thief is probably my biggest disappointment.
Yeah, their timing was probably ideal though. They launched it early, so there wasn't a lot of options.
Yeah.
So you kind of pigeonholed into it.
Yeah, I don't know. I was a fan of the original series, but this one, I just could not. There's simple things in that game that they just did not think about, like load screens when you climb through a window by mistake would just, bad choices. But anyway, it's free. Hey.
Yeah, I've got the 360 games here too. If you want me to run through them.
Yeah, they're also technically Xbox One games now.
They are. Yeah. Everything released on Xbox 360 for Games for Gold is now Xbox One as well. So if you've only got an Xbox One, you can download them through the Xbox website, and then you'll be able to install them on your Xbox One. So on December 1st, Castle Storm, which was an arcade game. Then on the 16th of December, both Sacred 3 and Operation Flashpoint Dragon Rising will be added.
So from my point of view, based on all that, it's really awesome that we're getting 5 games, but there's probably nothing in that bunch of 5 that's got me going, wow, I've got to play that. Maybe Van Helsing, but other than that, I'm kind of, it's good to have, but yay.
Yeah, I honestly think that you're better off getting an EA Access subscription at that point. I mean, you need Games for Gold, but EA Access is a far better free game library.
Now, what I will be doing, though, is I do have Thief, the disc-based copy, so it gives me a chance to have a crack at selling that for, $1.50.
It's good angle to take. So was that all the 360 games for the Games of Gold?
Yeah, and I don't think the PlayStation Plus ones have been announced just yet, so
I haven't seen that.
Well, when we do know them, make sure you check out aussiegeek.com.au and we'll post them on there, and you can keep up to date with the PlayStation ones as well. All right, so maybe we'll get on to some of the bigger topics for the evening. Firstly, there was a little bit of a story came out recently that pointed out that over the last few years, Nintendo's average Metacritic scores have progressively been getting worse. Now, Darren, I know you were looking into this. Have you got some statistics there that you can talk to us about?
Well, this year has been, so far, because there are still a couple of games to come out that might bump this up a little bit, with Xenoblade Chronicles X still to be released. So far, their average is 96.8. Sorry, 96. That would have been really good. 69.8, which is the lowest in 10 years.
Sorry, lowest in 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. That's so. This is tracking back as far as 2005, and that is their lowest by a fair margin, by about a 5% margin to the next lowest. So it's a fair old drop off. With their highest being 2010 at 86.5.
Now this is Metacritic score, so this isn't sales. So this can't be put down to more people owned a Wii U. This is the critical response to those games.
Yeah.
What do you think is the cause of this?
Okay, so there's two things. Delaying Star Fox and Zelda, because if both of those had come out this year, it probably would have made a bit of a difference. Although I've played Star Fox, and I don't expect that to be like a 10 out of 10 or anything like that, but it was still another game that Wii U gamers were looking forward to. But also, I expect that Nintendo's main teams are not making games for Wii U. They've all moved on.
Yeah, I think you're on the money there. I think there's a bit of a halo effect, for want of a better term, that the Wii U has a bit of a negative connotation associated with it at the moment, because it's not the successful console that Nintendo hoped it would be, and I think a lot of people are taking some of that baggage into a review and not necessarily being as positive about some of the games. So I think there's a bit of that as well. I also think, and I know that's the Metacritic score from the critics themselves, but I think some of the user scores are being biased by people who don't actually own them, whether that's either the Xbox One or the Wii or the PlayStation. I think the emergence of the fanboy to downvote things is a big thing at the moment.
To that end, I actually don't even bother checking user reviews on Metacritic because of that.
Yeah.
When a game can get stacks of 0 reviews before it's released, I've got no confidence in it for what it's supposed to be, which is a peer review.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, talking specifically about Wii U, there have been, if you think of the top games that have come out, there's been 4 games that I would classify as being good, or maybe edging on great, being Super Mario Maker, Splatoon, and now I'm just blanking on the Yoshi's Woolly World.
Oh, yep.
And Kirby's Rainbow Curse, I think it was, that came out early in the year. They were sort of their big 4 games for Wii U, and they probably just don't stack up against a year that you'll get a Zelda or a Mario, or like a core Mario. I mean, obviously Mario Maker was pretty cool, and critics loved it, but yeah, I just feel that like those main teams, like the team that's working on Zelda and the team that's working on a core Mario game, the team that's working on a Metroid game or a new Animal Crossing or any of those big franchises that are going to pull those big scores, have moved on to the next console. They're not working on games for the Wii U.
Yeah, either the next console or iOS apps.
Well, I think a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I don't imagine that's their main teams though. Like the Mario team will be making whatever the next Mario game is.
Okay, yeah, fair point.
So they are obviously spreading out and starting to move into mobile and things like that. That we'll start to see next year as well. But
yeah,
I think those big teams have moved on to the next thing, which I expect to be revealed next year and released next year, and the nail put in the Wii U finally.
Do you think the Wii U 2 has kind of become this pigeonholed console for kids now too? I know that might be a nail in my coffin if you're a big Wii U fan, but I do feel that it tends to be more towards the casual gamer.
I mean, yeah.
To a fair extent, Nintendo have always been the console brand, or at least in the last few years, that catered to not necessarily kids, but more to families.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to put it.
I mean, we did see Devil's Third come out, which was very much not a kid-focused game. It was also kind of shit, but it was not at all aimed at kids.
Yeah, there's one of the reasons the Metacritic's down.
But do you think consumers are getting a bit fatigued with the same franchises? Like, we've had 4 Mario games come out in the Wii U. Is that too many? Are they flogging a dead horse a bit too much, do you think?
I mean, there has been, but would you call any of them a core Mario title?
Well, I'd call I can't even remember the titles of it, but the first side-scrolling 2D one was definitely a core Mario title.
Oh, yeah, but it was a side-scrolling 2D Mario. It's not the Mario Galaxy or even like going back further, Mario Sunshine or Mario 64. Like it wasn't the game that you like. And then they had Mario 3D World, which was kind of a cross between your Mario Galaxy and the handheld games. That big Mario game, this didn't come. I don't know whether that's because they got to a point where they knew that they were moving onto the Wii, or onto the NX or whatever it's going to be called, and shifted development of a big Mario game that you can sort of get immersed in with a big world that you can travel around like those other ones. But that sort of didn't land. The releasing a couple of 2D side-scrolling ones just seems like, while they are good, don't get me wrong, a little bit of filler using those characters. I don't know whether... I think if Mario Galaxy 3 dropped, it'd score high 9s and everybody would buy it.
Yeah.
But I think they're holding that off now for the NX. Maybe that's going to be a launch title for NX. Maybe Zelda that is apparently still being developed for Wii U. They've come out recently and said that. I think that's going to be another Twilight Princess, and it will be a launch title for NX. So if they launched with Zelda and they launched with a core Mario game, all of a sudden everybody will be interested in a new Nintendo console again.
Do you think the NX will, I guess, be a response to the critiques that the Wii U was underpowered comparatively?
Yeah, well, they've come out and said that the NX will have industry-leading chips. I'm not sure if that's like Cool Ranch Doritos or because they're pretty good. But like from all accounts, it's going to be more powerful than the Xbox One and the PS4, which is great. But that's not the problem. My problem with the Wii U is their online service. Just the whole thing basically isn't great. There's no unified accounts across my my 3DS and my Wii U. I can't buy a game on one platform and play it on the other like you can with PlayStation. If you're playing online, the games don't work. It's not as easy to get into games with friends. Sometimes it's impossible to get into games with friends. Most of Nintendo's own games, you cannot party chat with friends while you're playing. Like there's heaps of things that I dislike about the Wii U that's got nothing to do with the power of it. I love my Wii U and most of the games that I've got on it, but I hate the gamepad. I hate playing with that big-ass gamepad in my hand.
I think also
not being able to play online kills most of those games, the third-party games that are the reason why everybody thinks the Wii U is a kid's console is because it doesn't have Call of Duty and all these things on it. And if you can't chat in-game and you can't get into games with friends, it's never going to happen. They're not coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're right too. Sorry, I think you're right about that third-party support too. I think that's a critical element for the success of the overall console. Like you can have great first-party, but if the third-party stuff's not there, you are limiting it to probably a loyal fan base as opposed to a more general fan base.
It's also when you consider that most people will make their purchase of consoles based on what their friends do, who they're playing with online. The harder that is, the less likely it is that they'll carry over. Although we did see a bit of a shift this generation with a lot more people moving from Xbox to PlayStation, but I think still, if you've not got the online services there, you're not really going to capture that that shift to the new console with your friends.
The other problem is going to be that they're also jumping in now mid-generation. So people moving on from the last generation of consoles will have already moved to PS4 or Xbox One. So it's going to be even harder again for them to sort of get that core gamer. It's still going to have to basically sit as a secondary console for a lot of core gamers.
Yeah, and I think the Wii U itself at this point in time is a known entity. We know it's got a limited lifespan based on the NX, which is here at some stage in the near future. So anyone who's considering buying a Wii U might be turned off by that and just be sitting on the sidelines, just waiting that little bit longer.
Absolutely. Do you think the NX might end up being a handheld and sort of succeed the 3DS, or do you think they'll keep the 3DS running a bit longer?
I'm not sure where I read it, but I think that the idea behind it is that the gamepad can be taken like it again is a gamepad. Hopefully it's not as big, but can be taken away from the console. I don't know whether that will mean that that handheld is where the power is, and you can basically play your big Mario game or your Zelda on the road, or if that's sort of going to play maybe the mobile games that they're creating. You can play on that when you're away from home. But I can't see them doing something that is industry leading and handheld. You couldn't do it and make it cost effective. So I expect there to be a console that will drive the home console experiences, and maybe that handheld gamepad can be taken away to play other games.
Yeah, I think it's definitely got to be more mainstream than the Wii U. I mean, I don't want Nintendo to stop innovating, because I think that's a strength. Even though they didn't get it quite right with the Wii U, I still want to see that innovation from Nintendo, but I think they need to play it a little bit safer. Otherwise, their long-term viability as a company is probably going to be questioned.
Yeah, absolutely. If let's face it, the player base has, to an extent, deserted the console this generation. They really need to look at what's more important, getting people to have the console in their home, or coming up with the craziest notions and weirdest ideas. I'm personally not sold on the idea of having the two handheld and the home console device together. I just don't see it as working, and I think if they do that, it's gonna flop, because you are going to be limited on the hardware, as Darren mentioned. So I hope they don't. I hope they just come out and say, you know what, here's a powerhouse of a machine. It's really well priced, and look how amazing Zelda looks on it.
Yeah, and it uses a traditional controller.
Yes, please. Yes, please. And not invert your A and B buttons. That does my head in. I'm so used, because it's the same. Obviously, it's the same as the Xbox in regards to having the same buttons, but they're in different spots. So I'm just so used to press X. No, that's why. So sticking in the vein of console gaming, Star Wars Battlefront. Have we all had a chance to have a crack at it yet? I know you have, Darren. Have you had a chance, Wes?
No, actually, I'm sitting on the sidelines on this one. There's a couple of things that really upset me. One, look, I'll say off the bat, it looks fantastic. It looks phenomenal. As you can see in the background, I am a bit of a Star Wars fan. But I felt almost like they delivered a half-assed game, and then wanted us to go and pay for the rest of the game via the exorbitant DLC. So I've got enough games at this point to keep me occupied with things like Rise of the Tomb Raider, Fallout 4. I'm just going to sit this one out for a little bit and just see how it unfolds from the Battlefront side of things. Maybe I'll go and watch the movie first. We'll see.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Darren? What have your thoughts on Battlefront been?
I think that Battlefront is fantastic, but at the same time, I wish there was some more maps.
There's 16.
Well, that depends on what you are doing in the game as to whether those 16 are real 16 maps. I tend to play Supremacy or one of those bigger modes.
Walker Assault's the other big one.
Yeah, Walker Assault. I'm not a huge fan of the hero matches, like the hero hunt and things like that. Yep. So if you're continually playing on Supremacy, which I do, there's 4 maps. Mm-hmm. There's one for each of the 4 planets. There's 4 maps if you do, I think it was 4 maps, Walker Assault.
Yep, Walker Assault is the same 4 maps as it is in Supremacy, just with different objectives, basically.
Yeah, so when they say that there's 13 or 16 maps or whatever it is on the back of the box, that's only if you are playing all of the different game modes and count a slightly different variation of Endor being a different map. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly your point, Wes, in that once all of that DLC comes out and they add another 16 maps, 4 maps, then you'll have 8 maps to play Supremacy, and that will then make the difference. So while I think the game is the most Star Wars of Star Wars games, playing it is exactly what you would want out of a Star Wars game. I just feel that people have complained about the game modes being light. I don't believe in that at all. I think that there's heaps of different game modes. I think that's the maps that make it feel like it's light. In that you're playing Call of Duty, your maps rotate through, or you might hit the same maps relatively often, but there's enough maps in that pool that you don't feel like you're playing the same thing over and over again. Whereas playing Battlefront, you can hit the same maps a ton of times in one gaming session. So.
Yeah.
I did the review for Aussie Geek. I gave it a fairly good score. I gave it a 8.2, I think, from memory. I thought it was really good, but I hold the same criticisms that you guys have sort of brought up. The maps I think the maps that are included are fantastic. Some of them, like Endor, is amazing as an environment, but it just needed to be more. The other thing that I think they did really well, and I was genuinely surprised by this, was how well they handled heroes. When a hero enters the battlefield, it has such a strong change and such a huge impact in the actual gameplay. You'll suddenly see, Darth Vader come charging at you, and every single rebel turns their guns and tries to bring Darth Vader down as quickly as possible. And you'll still monster them, and you'll be able to clear them up. They're really powerful, but they're not so powerful that they unbalance a game. I think they really did that one well.
Well, one of the things that I love about Star Wars and the whole Star Wars universe is that story, and the game not having a story campaign mode. That's been another one of those things that's just got me questioning the value of this game from a multiplayer mode only. Now, having played it, what's your thoughts on lack of campaign?
It's again, this is something I covered in the review as well. I don't have a problem with not having a single-player campaign usually. I really enjoyed Titanfall. The thing is that you're doing a training mission early on, and it's on Endor as stormtroopers, and you're zipping through the forests trying to chase down these rebels. It was really thematic, and it was really exciting. You're whipping between AT-AT legs, and I just thought, man, this would be amazing in a single-player campaign, but it's not. It's just a training mission on how to use a speeder bike. I think that the game gives you enough that you really miss not having that single-player story. But again, would you want to tread that same path for a campaign of the Star Wars universe story, the episode 4 through 6?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've got to say, I think EA have done a pretty good job of the game visually and with the audio. It sounds phenomenal as well. That I think that even post Battlefront, they'll get another crack at doing something else with this universe. I think they've deserved that at the very least.
I think there's something in the works, isn't there?
Yeah, it's 10 years. EA have got the Star Wars license for 10 years. So and they're working on something cinematic because they got was it Amy Hennig who was behind Uncharted.
Yeah.
So she is heading up the team what was the name of the team that's doing it? I think they made was it the Dead Space games?
Okay. I've just massively blanked.
Yeah. So anyway, she's heading up that team, and they are making a cinematic Star Wars game, which I expect we'll probably see at E3 next year.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for Star Wars Battlefront to be multiplayer only. I would have liked some more maps, but the game is exactly what I want from an online shooter. I'm happy to forego a campaign in that game to have the shooting and the multiplayer side of it as tight as it is, when I know that there is some big cinematic Star Wars experience coming, being headed up by one of the best cinematic game creators there is. So.
Visceral is the development studio.
There we go. That's the one.
But that being said, they've only just finished up Battlefield Hardline, so do you think that 2 years is enough time to get that big cinematic game?
Well, it's been 2 years since they got the license, so they've made Battlefront in 2 years. So if we say that this game maybe it comes out the end of next year, that would have had a 3-year life cycle, which I think is about the same as what Uncharted would have had before they had all of the issues with Uncharted 4. I'm pretty sure that game was planned for a 3-year life, so 3 years I think is enough for them to have. If they use that same engine that they use for Battlefront, it already looks amazing. So
that's right. They've got the assets, they've got the audio. The game looks phenomenal, like you said. So maybe it'll turn around quickly.
Do you think that there's going to be another BioWare RPG?
Oh God, I hope so.
I'm in that camp as
That's
well.
it.
Well, I mean, let's face it. What have BioWare been on recently? The Old Republic is the only thing I can think of off the top of my head.
Before we go any further with that, I would just be happy for them to bring the Old Republic to consoles. They're still making
Remaster.
content for it. Just release the Old Republic on Xbox One and PS4, and I'm happy with my Star Wars.
Yeah, not going to happen anytime soon, I don't think. But listen, I love BioWare games in general. I'd love to see. I suppose they're working on Mass Effect, though, aren't they?
Well, I think they've got more than one team, but yeah, Mass Effect Andromeda is their big one.
Yeah, I'd love to see them either do Star Wars or Jade Empire 2, thanks.
Jade Empire sold really badly, so I don't know whether that'll happen, but yeah.
Shut up. They'll do it. Damn it. But yeah, I think that to me is the obvious one because, Knights of the Old Republic was so critically acclaimed and just such an endearing game. I'd like to see them take another swing at it. Maybe not necessarily the Old Republic 3 because, there were issues with the Old Republic 2, but I really want them to take another swing at it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing something done like around the time of the new trilogy, rather than rehashing stuff that we've seen 100 times before. I'm super excited for the new movie trilogy and all of the other spin-offs that are coming. I'd like to see more pushed forwards as opposed to just going back and recycling stuff we've seen. I want new things.
Yeah, and maybe that's some of the rationale behind not having a full-blown campaign mode in Battlefront, just so it doesn't interfere with the timeline of the movies and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if Battlefront 2, which would be Battlefront 4, gets announced and has a single-player campaign that is set post or at the tail end of this trilogy, where they don't have to worry so much about breaking canon because, I don't know that they're going to do another 3 after that in the very near future. They will at some point, but I think that'd make a lot more sense.
I don't know about that either. This is Disney that's got hold of it now, so I expect there to be episodes 10, 11, 12. It'll just keep going until it dies completely.
Yeah. Plus all the spin-offs. I mean, just look what they're doing with the whole Marvel universe.
Yeah.
What influence is Disney having on all of that?
Yeah, if we're getting 3 or 4 or 5 Marvel movies a year, expect to see at least one Star Wars movie a year for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly okay with that.
I am tentatively, but let's see how this one goes first before we might end up with another Jar Jar Binks episode. I actually read something online recently that put a spin on things where it comes from the perspective of Jar Jar Binks being like a Sith Lord.
Yeah, I saw that.
This is amazing. Like whenever he's got this ridiculous dumb luck that is beyond normal capacity for luck. He has what is described as a drunken master fighting style. He influences the Senate. He causes the Emperor to gain power. It's interesting. I don't know how much I subscribe to it, but I thought it was interesting. Speaking of Marvel, and we'll finish up on this one tonight, but Captain America Civil War trailer has dropped. First of all, have we all seen it? I know I've had it on repeat since I saw it.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Absolutely amazing. Can't wait.
Darren and I speculated a little while ago that this would be a 2-parter. Do you still think that's the case, Darren? Do you still think Iron Man is going to be the second part of Civil War, the next Iron Man film?
I don't anymore, no. I think, and while we've known that this is the thing that I took away from the trailer the most, we know that it is Captain America versus Tony Stark, and the two teams butting heads. I did not expect it to be as big a conflict as what you see in the trailer. Like, it looks full on. Like, it doesn't look like them having a bit of a tussle and then eventually joining together and fighting some big bad guy. It looks pretty full on. Like, you see War Machine that looks like he's had a bad day in that trailer.
And by bad day, he looks dead.
Yeah,
right? That's a bad day.
It is a bad day.
Unless you're Nick Fury.
What's the significance or the rationale of going with Captain America as opposed to Iron Man?
In what respect, sorry?
Well, I wonder why they're using Captain America as the lead, I guess, personality when highlighting the trailer. So it's obviously Captain America skewed, and we've seen Captain America, but he's obviously up against Tony Stark and Iron Man. So I just don't know why Tony Stark and Iron Man hasn't been. I guess maybe that's trailer 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the poster's got both of them, but from what I got from the trailer anyway, it is Captain America's story and his and that was the other thing that that I was a little bit surprised about, and it may have been that I just missed this completely, but the catalyst behind the Civil War being Winter Soldier.
Okay.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like, well, SHIELD or the government are trying to arrest Winter Soldier, obviously, because he's a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing is basically based around Captain America trying to save him and I guess redeem him, which I think is an interesting spin on what happens in the comics.
I think though that there's more than that, more than just Captain America chasing him. Obviously, there's an incident that happens because the language and the tone used and the fact that they bring out this manual and all that sort of crap implies to me that maybe during the course of chasing him down, he extends his authority, he does something bad, and so I think that potentially they can tie elements of that the comic catalyst into it.
Yeah.
Well, the catalyst in the comics is obviously when that group of wannabe heroes blows up a bus or something, don't they?
It was like a school or something. But yeah, it was basically around the Registration Act. So all people with superpowers being registered with the government so that they know who can do what. It's happened a number of times in the X-Men lore, but yeah.
Do you suspect that that's potentially why they didn't do it? Because it might land a bit too close to home to some of the X-Men canon that's already been explored quite extensively in the X-Men universe, the movie universe?
I'm not sure whether that's specifically the reason that they would have changed it, but I mean the idea of it being Steve Rogers trying to redeem Bucky, I think is actually more interesting. The other thing being that how are they going to depict something like superheroes or heroes villains blowing up a school of children, on a movie that's meant for families? So they have to do something that makes sense to what's already come before it. And I think that using Winter Soldier as the catalyst to start the conflict, I think is really cool.
I noticed a few absentees from the trailer. Hawkeye's not in it, by the look of things.
I think I saw him in the background of one shot. Hawkeye.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'm
Standing
sure
behind
I've seen
Captain
him.
America at one point.
I'll have to go back and check it out. Were you expecting to see Spider-Man's reveal?
No.
Not at all. Because
No.
we know who's playing him now.
Yeah. No, I don't expect to see him until you are sitting in the cinema watching the movie. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Oh, I was expecting the Captain America, Winter Soldier to appear on the screen and then just, Spider-Man masked up, just panning his head to the camera or something. But I don't know. I thought we were going to see that.
That might happen in like the trailer that comes out, the last trailer that comes out before the movie releases. Maybe they'll reveal him. Who knows?
We also got our first glimpse at Black Panther in action. What do we think?
Yeah, I think he looks really good. Actually, I didn't know how somebody in a completely black suit would look on film, but I think they've done a really good job of the suit design.
Do you think that he needed his own intro film, or do you think thrusting him into this one will work for the character?
I expect that they'll spend a bit of time giving him an intro in this movie. I don't know whether he'll just appear as part of the Avengers. I think they'll probably have something that ties him to it early in the movie. Maybe the first bit spent on where he's come from and why he's part of this. I don't think it needed a movie beforehand. He's obviously getting one afterwards, but I'm happy for him to just throw new superheroes into these bigger movies and then spin them off if they turn to be popular.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. It's the testing ground. You know, what's the audience reaction to this character in this suit, and what can they do with it from here?
That's a good point. Do you think so? Obviously, in the Civil War story arc, we saw, in the comics anyway, we see a lot of superheroes going toe to toe. Do you think we're going to see some seepage from the Netflix TV series? We've seen now 3 heroes in that, being Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. Do you think we'll see them appearing in these films? They obviously are part of the universe as a whole. Do you think we'll see them even as a cameo in Captain America, or do you think that's going to be a later down the track thing?
I think if it happens, it'll be Avengers. It won't be Civil War. I expect Civil War to be, was it the 5 on each side that you see in the trailer, plus Spider-Man, I guess. I don't think that there'll be any of the Netflix characters as yet in those movies. I expect they'll probably be called upon to tackle Thanos when the time comes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see a lot of crossover. I think they're trying to delineate the TV shows from the movies. I haven't seen a hell of a lot of crossover between the two, but
they are very much integrated. In Jessica Jones, they do talk about the events of New York. I think they do in Daredevil as well.
Yeah, but would you necessarily see those characters coming into the universe on the TV series from the movies?
I don't see Robert Downey Jr. turning up on a Netflix TV series, but I can see them going the other way if they wanted to do that, though. Like if they were having a huge battle and they wanted to bring some more characters as fodder for Thanos to punch in the face. I can see the likes of Luke Cage turning up and things like that. But I just think it'd be cool to see all those characters on the screen.
Because we've also got Guardians of the Galaxy, and that is very closely tied to the Thanos mythology. Is that going to be too much on screen? There's going to be about 30 or 40 superheroes on screen. Is that going to be too much? Can the silver screen deal with it?
That's probably why it's been split into 2 movies, to be able to deal with that. My guess is that the first Avengers movie will not have any of the Avengers that we originally saw. So there'll be no Hulk, there'll be no Thor. It probably won't be. Well, Iron Man and Captain America are probably questionable at this point as to whether they'll be part of that first team. Maybe they all disband and Captain America goes underground or something, and Iron Man leaves with the Guardians of the Galaxy and goes into space or whatever happens. But I think that the first one might be New Avengers taking on Thanos, and then the second part of it being that they've already been defeated or something, and then the other ones have to come back with the Guardians and finish him off. I don't know. I'm speculating. I've got no idea.
Well, Disney, they do like the come from behind Mighty Ducks style stories. So I don't know. It could work.
And I'll just bow to your wisdom on that one.
There is no wisdom here.
We've spent a long time speculating exactly what's going to happen with Phase 3 now of the Marvel films. So keeping in mind also the other big one that we haven't really seen much of is Ant-Man. Is Ant-Man going to be in Civil War? Because I think it was set up at the end, wasn't it?
Ant-Man is, I think, in Civil War because the post-credits scene, because I've recently watched Ant-Man, the post-credits scene has it was when Captain America and Falcon find Bucky, and they talk about bringing Ant-Man in to help them do something. So, yeah, I think he'll be in there. So
we're already seeing a fairly big cast of characters in Civil War then, really, aren't we?
Yeah, that makes 12 that I can count right now.
Just about enough. Well, guys, I think that will bring us to the end of the cast. We've been yabbering away now for a cheeky hour or so. So I'd first of all like to thank both of you for joining us. It's been really interesting to talk about these things. I'd also like to thank everyone who's watched the podcast or listened to the audio. Make sure you jump on our Facebook or our Twitter, and we also have a Patreon fund, and this is going to help us really develop these podcasts and upgrade our equipment, make sure we're bringing you the best quality content that we can. So jump over there. Anything is welcome. But yeah, so guys, I'd like to say thank you again.
Cheers. Good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for driving this rickety ship.
It is rickety, and I'm surprised it hasn't fallen apart completely and sunk without a trace. But here we are. So until next week, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.